In today's Discerning Notes or FragraNotes series, I'll be discussing perhaps the most noble flower in perfumery, the beautiful iris. The strange thing about iris is that its distinctive scent does not come from the flower itself, although the flower does have a scent, but it cannot be extracted as such. And anyway, the flower smells a little bit like violets, so perfumers would rather use violets instead. However, the scent comes from the root or the rhizome, which contains the oils and the chemicals called irones, which impart the iris flower's distinctive scent. The iris rhizomes are pulled out of the ground and they are actually kept and dried for about 3 years in order for certain chemical reactions to take place for the distinctive aroma to materialize. And because of the labor intensiveness of harvesting iris, it is perhaps one of the most expensive ingredients, costing over $30,000 for a single kilogram of iris or orris butter. There are many perfumes that claim to contain iris, but I will just feature some which have iris as the dominant note. I actually sprayed some Dior Homme and Dior Homme Intense, which is of course one of the best sellers from the house of Christian Dior, and I've allowed about 8 hours of dry down in order to assess these fragrances. And what I get from these fragrances is the slightly metallic, papery, woody, and touch powdery aspect. Of course, Dior Homme actually combines these characteristics with the note of cocoa or chocolate, which makes it a very unusual fragrance indeed, that actually borders on feminine. And I tried Dior Homme Intense, which is the flanker to Dior Homme. It is deeper, less shrill, and a bit creamier than Dior Homme. The next fragrance I'll talk about is actually from Prada, and is their Infusion d'Iris. Now this is a brighter, soapier take on iris, and it imparts a very clean smell to it. I think there's orange blossom as well, but this is one of the most transparent irises that I've ever smelled. This note is so important that one house, Guerlain, has even used it as one of the 5 cornerstones of the Guerlain, which makes up almost all their fragrances, including the legendary Shalimar, Bleue, as well as Nuit. So all these 3 fragrances have other dominant notes, but the orris lends a distinct touch of powderiness to all the compositions. In fact, I am of the opinion that iris is the one note that saves Shalimar from becoming a totally come-hither fragrance and actually lends a bit of classiness to this sex pot perfume. The next perfume actually features this note even more prominently, and is the famous number 19 by Chanel, and this is the Eau de Parfum, and I also have the Pure Parfum, and this is almost diametrically opposite to Shalimar in the sense of being rather cold, aloof, and distant, but also assertive at the same time. And it lends a certain dusky powderiness to the otherwise sharp and tobacco-like composition, and I believe that some of the tobacco-like quality actually comes from the orris itself. Thus, number 19 does rather bring out the sharp and somewhat edgy but yet regal quality of the iris notes. And in the parfum concentration, which I have another bottle of, is actually quite creamy as well and very deep. And I'm going to try some of the Eau de Parfum just to give you some impressions of this one. Yes, it's really like tobacco leaves. on the initial blast, which is probably galbanum with a touch of the iris coming in, and it sort of holds the whole composition together. It's a little bit astringent, the galbanum with the powdery iris, but it's a composition that's just very, very alluring. The next composition that I will discuss, the last one, is a straight up, no holes barred, all out iris by Serge Lutens called Iris Silver Mist. And apparently this one was composed with every conceivable iris note imaginable, including the rather rarely used iris nitrile. Now this one is very carroty and yet metallic at the same time to my nose. So it is very appropriately named because it really has the silvery edge to it, and it also gives some people the impression of being in a foggy place, like in a horror movie, and the rooty, earthy and metallic characteristics of iris come up very prominently to me in this perfume, and this is rated a very distinctive 5 stars by the perfume guide, and the author actually called it the best iris ever. So it's been reformulated a little bit, but basically it does very, very well in replicating the rather earthy and natural smell with mainly synthetic notes. So as usual, please don't forget to comment down below on scents that I do not have, including things like Iris Nobile, Hermes Iris, as well as other scents that you may have and you would like to share. I would really want to know. And following this will be some information on some of the odorants in iris